This is the Surly Grognards for May 14th, 2013. This is Peter Bowman, joined as usual with my good friend and co-host, Eric Carlson. How you doing tonight, Eric?
I'm doing all right.
Excellent, excellent. So, this week we're going to be talking a little bit about archetypes in role-playing games. So, when I say archetypes, I don't just mean, like, feng shui, the way different types of character you can play are called archetypes, but...
Yeah, we're not dealing just with character classes.
Right. But a lot of character classes do tend to fall into certain archetypes. But there are other archetypes also that do show up. And I think feng shui sort of does capture that pretty well with the way they do their character quote classes. A lot of them are sort of the are actually archetypes, and they're not just not just classes.
Right.
We'll start things. So we're going to talk about some archetypes that we've dealt with over the years, some of the classics, etc. And we'll also talk about some of the ones we tend to favor when we play, or we favor as for villainous archetypes that we use as villains and such, because there are villainous archetypes as well as heroic archetypes, and
Yes.
sort of not neither archetype.
And archetypes, personality-wise,
Definitely.
which I'm most fond of.
Well, I will say this. I do find that a lot of the sort of classic archetypes, when you sort of talk about them, do tend to have sort of personalities tied into them usually.
They do typically have a lot of personality tied into them. For example, the killer from Feng Shui. He's a gut bunny, and he's going to, by necessity, have a certain moral flexibility.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I was also thinking of that the classic sort of one of those things is that when you say D&D like a fighter in D&D, you tend to think of sort of a big, strong, tough guy who's there to protect the party.
Yes, lots of typically with a lot of armor and melee focused.
But that sort of tends to lead into sort of a character sort of mindset that tends to, and a personality that a lot of people tend to associate with fighters.
Very direct and blunt,
Mm-hmm.
which is always fun to play.
But yeah, very direct, very blunt. Not too smart, but not dumb as a post. Usually, that's usually
Right.
That's usually safe for the barbarian for some reason.
Yeah, weirdly.
And there's a few other things that show up there, but yeah, basically the general sort of picture of that is he's big, he's direct, he's blunt, but he's reliable.
Yes, you can always rely on him to do his job.
And and he'll be there for the rest of the group.
Yes, he's not gonna, unlike the thief or rogue who might just fuck off and do something else at any time.
Right. And of course, within each classes, there are always, as always, multiple archetypes within that.
Oh yeah,
Such
certainly.
you mentioned thief, so sort of brought that to mind. The classic sort of there's the classic thief, the scummy guy who's there the party barely trusts, but he's there because you need him to be able to pick locks and sneak around and do stuff and scout for you. Whereas the other side of that is what the
Is Han Solo.
Well, no, I was actually thinking more along the lines of Bilbo Baggins.
Yeah.
The burglar. The guy who is a thief in all his abilities, but not in his mindset.
Yes.
He's there to do most of the roles the thief has, but he's not a thief. He's he's a scout. He's he knows how to pick locks, and he knows how to sneak around a bunch, but he's not a conniving backstabber. I mean, he'll stab someone in the back if he has to, but
that's he'd feel bad about it.
Well, usually it's because it works better.
He's not left with any options.
Right. Or if you're playing in games where they actually you get bonuses for attacking from behind when your teammates are sort of distracting them.
Right.
Like with flank bonuses in third ed, or when you combat advantage in fourth ed. It's more a case of taking advantage of battlefield opportunities, not just attacking while the enemy's distracted, not basically being a conniving bastard.
An opportunity fighter.
Mm-hmm. I know. So if I were to say ranger, what sort of personality archetypes what personality traits do you usually think?
Oh, the ranger is the stoic loner who's who's there for his own reasons, but it is will definitely help you out when you need him.
Right. Right. So you got then the wizard.
And the wizard's a bookish intellectual sort.
See, I often
maybe a little gruff,
right.
Maybe, but yeah, intellectual, maybe a little bookish, maybe a little gruff, but he's a smart guy.
Right. And so you got that. The cleric is the the rock.
Right. He's the guy he's the glue that holds everything together.
Right. Exactly.
He's the moral center of the group.
And so you got that. And, the paladin is the over-righteous, overbearing asshole with the stick up his ass. That's the paladin That's the paladin you used to see all the time.
Yeah.
Which is a shame because a well-done paladin is actually really freaking cool.
And it's actually fun to play. When approached properly. I will say every time I've tried to play a paladin, I have not gone for the overly righteous git with a stick stuck up his ass.
Right.
I've done more the sort of really nice guy who with a lot of faith, but he isn't going to shove it in your face and condemn you for things. He's going to not so comfortable with this.
Right. Honestly,
I also always end up with dice rolls that make me Parn from Lotus Wars.
Actually, it just occurred to me. You know what might be one of the great sort of personalities to steal from to actually play a paladin?
Parn?
No, Superman.
Yes. Superman's
he's a paladin. He is.
Perfect person to base a paladin off of.
I mean, there are other... I mean,
help.
Yeah, if you want to play the good, the true good guy paladin, Superman's actual personality, ignore his powers, ignore everything else. The way Superman thinks about, how he helps people out and how he defends people and how he is basically a moral sort of focus for any group he's in.
Yes.
It's like, wow, that's... I wish I thought of that sooner. I could have actually... I would have had... Wow, now I have to play paladin that way.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good one. That's a good one.
And then the classic... And the range... amazingly, the Ranger's basically Batman.
Yeah, the Ranger's Batman. You could argue a thief or assassin for Batman.
Yeah.
Assassin's a lot more Deathstroke than Batman.
Yeah, actually, the Rogue in general is Batman, I think. Also.
Yeah. And yeah, you could also totally play the thief like the charming Han Solo type of rogue.
Absolutely.
The guy who's I'm totally out for myself, and I'll leave you guys as soon as things get rough, and I should really help you out.
There's totally money in it for me, right?
Yeah. And that's something else. Star Wars is basically made out of archetypes.
Oh, it's a brilliant example of that.
Yes.
And
it's what it is.
And this is the reason I want to do a Star Wars Feng Shui game at some point.
Yes.
One of the many reasons. But yeah, interestingly enough, we could go on talking about the various classes and various role-playing games and what types of sort of personality traits you normally associate with them. But I think that's a bit too limiting for talking about archetypes in general. And
absolutely, archetypes they're archetypical.
I mean, there's the other classic place you can draw this from is from manga and anime is another great source.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you've got if you look at the classic Sentai team, you've got the big guy.
You've got the big gregarious guy.
Right.
You've got the young hotshot who's all cocksure and whatnot.
You've got the guy who's the sort of the quote lone wolf end quote who's not really. Again, he's sort of like the what we're talking about with the Ranger. He's the guy who's who's happiest on his own and such. But when push comes to shove, he's there for the team.
Yes, you've got the really nice guy who's actually really good at everything he tries, but he's really humble about it.
Right. And then
not talking about Max Sterling at all. Nope, not me.
And then you've got the sort of the emotional center of the team.
Yes. It's almost always the Pink Ranger, for lack of a better term.
The chick.
The girl. Yes.
That's if you go to TV tropes, that's the archetype, the chick that they refer to. The trope, the chick.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate to a certain degree, but the thing is that archetype doesn't have to be female. Is the thing.
No, not at all. Well, not any of these archetypes really need to be female.
Oh, of course not. But so yeah, and I would say that those are
or
some
male or what have you.
But So let's see. What other archetypes can we think of off the top of our heads? So we got the big bruiser, the big burly tough guy
Oh yeah.
who may or may not be But sorry, Eric, I interrupted you.
When I think like the particular archetype, particularly in Sentai, he's he's the big bruiser. He's gregarious. He's everything is the greatest thing ever or the worst possible thing that's ever happened to us. He's Cyborg from the Teen Titans cartoon.
Yep, he's a great example. Chewbacca's another great example.
Yep, Chewbacca's another great one. He's big, he's gregarious. You have no idea what he's saying, and it doesn't matter.
Right. I mean, he's a big, likable guy, actually.
Yeah.
Behind the the surly exterior.
Yeah. Well, that's why Chewbacca's awesome.
Well, Chewbacca is awesome. I can't deny that. And then you've got the rogue with a heart of gold. I mean, Han Solo's the almost prototypical example of this, but it's been around. But it's been around forever.
Well, what's his name? Fuck. Green tights, bow, Robin Hood. Robin Hood. Han Solo is very much a Robin Hood kind of guy.
Yeah.
Or a Scarlet Pimpernel, or what have you.
Right. But yeah, you got that. You got sort of the the very boisterous, loudmouth guy who gets in over his head all the time, but is actually he may get in over his head, but is actually competent. It's just that he bites off more than he can chew.
He has the overconfidence flaw.
Yeah. And you've got the young hero is always the other classic one.
Yep. Han Solo. Not Han Solo.
Luke Skywalker. Yeah,
minus the bitchiness.
Yeah, Luke Skywalker, Parn from Record of Lodoss War.
There are 10,000 examples.
Oh God, yeah.
Bilbo falls right into that.
To a degree.
Those.
No, Bilbo starts off not as brash and cocksure as most of the young hero tends to be.
Yeah, that's true. He's in way over his head, and he knows it.
He's less in over his head than he actually thinks he is. Is the fun part about Bilbo. I love Bilbo's awesome. And when we did the episode on favorite fantasy races, as I mentioned, the reason halflings were in my top 5 is almost entirely because of Bilbo. I mean, he's one of my first favorite fantasy characters of all time, and there's really good reason for that.
There is, and he is pretty cool. He's just not an orc is his biggest problem. Or a goblin. He'd be better for a goblin.
No, he really wouldn't work as a goblin, Eric.
He would work great as a goblin.
No, he really wouldn't.
Yes, he would.
No. No, he really wouldn't.
Everything's better when it's a green skin.
No. Goblins are too downtrodden to work as Bilbo.
And conniving, typically.
Yeah.
Which is which would make Bilbo better if he were conniving and downtrodden.
No.
Someone's got to kick him around. Just make Sam an orc and Bilbo a goblin, and then goes from being a supporting rock to just kicking him. Get moving, you!
See, you're thinking of Frodo now, not Bilbo.
Oh, yeah.
And Frodo's nowhere near as cool as Bilbo.
Frodo's pretty cool.
Don't get me wrong. Frodo's a good character. He's an excellent character. Well, sorry, correction. Frodo in the novels is a great character. Not a fan of him in the movies. But that's mostly directorial decisions.
He's yeah. He's a bit of a whiny bitch in the movies.
Yep. You got the wise mentor and whose counterexample actually in many ways is the old master, who's not necessarily as wise, shall we say,
or as kind.
Yeah, no. Kind is not usually a word you associate with the old master archetype.
No.
They're usually
frick is usually what you associate with the old master.
I was going to say irascible, but old coot maybe, but
yeah.
But yeah, giant prick also. Asshole, But I mean,
the wise mentor is totally like Obi-Wan and Yoda, or Ramirez from Highlander, or
right.
Yeah, any number of. It's an archetype. You'll find him everywhere.
Whereas if you want to go with the old master, look at Pai Mei from Kill Bill is a great example of it.
Yes. Absolutely. Look at any friggin'
Yeah, the old master in any kung fu movie. I mean, really,
yeah.
that's where the archetype comes from to a large degree, and they're interesting. They're interesting characters, but so I mean, we could go on about talking about different archetypes here and there, and because there's so many of them, I don't want to spend too long talking about that because we'll just wander around. I mean, we're good at rambling and talking about stuff all the time, anyways. But
and archetypes are cool.
But I want to narrow down our little discussion here a bit. And one of the things that came up in the suggested topic, which was a great suggestion, was what are some of your favorites that you play, Eric?
I'm a big fan of the aforementioned Big Bruiser.
Right.
It's fun to not have to think tactically too much. By the same token, the Chessmaster is another really fun one.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Chessmaster. I like if people have heard me talking about 4th edition, the Tactical Warlord is one of my favorite archetypes and classes that builds in that game, and there's a reason, and that's why. But I would say one of my favorites was probably I'm not sure how to describe, but I mean the fast talking rogue, not necessarily the sort of the sneaky, thiefy, backstabbing thing, but more along the lines of the con artist.
Right.
I'm a big fan of sort of the fast talking guy who the charming fast talker who's a schemer, and you see me play that twice now.
Yes.
And I think I do a fairly good job at it.
He's kind of a mix of your rogue with a heart of gold and your Chessmaster.
Yeah, that's right. Basically,
and definitely an archetype unto himself.
Yep, and that's largely that's one of
Bilbo falls into it to a certain extent.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, as I said, the realization I had when I was playing Nalem, who's the first one I was referring to, what Eric saw me play, was it turned out was sort of ended up being a blend of a character from the series Hustle, which I'm a big fan of, Mickey Bricks, and so elements of him, and then sort of the elements of a lot of elements from Malcolm Reynolds from Firefly, who is a bizarre combination of sort of the soldier and the fast talking and the rogue with a heart of gold.
Yes, the scumbag who's not as scum as he thinks he is another archetype I really like.
Yeah,
I've seen me play a lot.
Yep.
It's sort of a variation of the rogue with a heart of gold, but a bit more consciously making bad decisions, because I'm a bad guy, damn it. I'm gonna totally steal all the money from these orphans, and I'm gonna. Oh look, I've left my money behind.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't carry all the money out of there, so I guess I had to leave some behind with the orphanage.
Yeah. Jane from Firefly is an excellent example of who I'm talking about.
To a degree, yeah.
Jane's got a little less loyalty than I usually play the character with, but that's mostly for maintaining party dynamics.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, Jane doesn't work as well in a role-playing group as he does in a TV show.
And fiction, yeah.
But, with a little tweaking, that works very well.
Yeah, just make him a bit more loyal to the group in your set, and it's a really fun character to play. I've found, anyway.
Yeah. I'm also a big fan of, as I've said, I've played a fair number of Wizards over the year, and I like playing the. Interestingly enough, I want to play a Chessmaster Wizard at some point because I think that'd be kind of fun. But I tend to play more the sort of somewhat exasperated, not surly, but sort of exasperated with people who aren't as smart as he is.
Yeah.
It's sort of the old. I keep forgetting that I've been studying my entire life, and you people are not. It's not that it's bad that you're not as smart as I am. It's just a fact, and I keep forgetting it. It's very frustrating.
One that I hadn't played a lot until recently, but I've absolutely fallen in love with is this sort of absent-minded professor. And you see that in Dr. Arcane.
Yep.
Like, I'm having tons of fun with Dr. Arcane.
Yeah, I've played that one too, and it is a lot of fun. I've had Wizards I've played that way also. Yeah, I've also played. One of my other favorites is I freely admit I actually do enjoy playing the sort of the party rock to a certain degree.
Right.
The somewhat stoic, but the stoic good guy who's sort of the emotional, sort of the sort of a moral center for the group, who's
I've done that a few times. I was sort of that in the Dark Heresy game with my Arbiter. I was that in the big, long Shadowrun game that you weren't a part of, unfortunately. But you don't even like Shadowrun, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, Shadowrun's not my cup of tea, but yeah. So I played that a fair bit. But I have to say I've discovered of late that I tend to gravitate more towards that's as I said, that sort of the fast talking rogue.
You do tend to really gravitate towards that, and I'm not sure if it's just because the Monday crew tends to lean towards sort of differently moraled.
That's part of it. That's part of it to a degree, but it's also I think that since I don't get to play very often, I enjoy playing characters who are that when I have my moments to roleplay, I get to I can actually get real meat out of it.
Mm.
And there's a lot of meat to be gotten out of that.
Yes, it's a good one.
And I've also, since our Monday group is not as weirdly, I've the things I found is that while we tend to be tend to favor a lot of role play to the most degree, I tend to be the person when I'm playing to play the sort of the least combat oriented character in the group. Most of you guys end up playing fairly combat heavy characters, interestingly.
Partially because we just like hitting things.
Yeah, that's why. And so I haven't felt the need to do that. I mean,
right. Which is cool.
Yeah. So I think it's part of the reason I've gravitated towards that. So it's interesting when Chris is running. It's usually like you and Leland are usually are both playing combat monsters with some really cool, interesting role playing stuff, and then Hannah and I tend to favor more towards the
more support roles, for lack of a better term.
Yeah. Yeah. I also, I admit, like playing skill monkeys. So.
Yeah. And I really like to hit things. I also depending on who I'm playing with, I also really like playing the very direct guy.
Right.
Like the particularly when I'm playing with my Dark Heresy / Rogue Trader crew. Though some of those guys, they're very much schemers. They'll sit there and they'll plan for sessions on sessions, and I really like being the guy. Why don't we just hit them? Why don't you just walk over to them and hit them till they fall down? It's great playing a foil to the schemers.
Yeah, I can see that. And there was a significant degree of that with interactions between Ken Rocco and Nalem in the Star Wars game.
There's a lot of that which was also a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Ken Rocco was very much less of a heroic archetype, partially so because it was a Star Wars game, but more of the sitcom archetype, which is the slacker on the couch.
Right.
That was Ken Rocco in a nutshell.
Yeah, it turned out he was Dave Lister as a Wookiee.
Yeah, which completely threw me when Will said, "Are you playing Lister?"
You're like, no,
wait a minute. Yeah, I think I am.
It's like, oh, no, wait. Actually, I am. Dear Lord. Oh God, yeah, that was an interesting game, and there are a lot of things I loved about that game, and there are a lot of things that all the things that frustrated me about that game had nothing to do with the actual game being the group or the story or anything like that. It was all the system for me.
Yeah.
But
no, there was a little bit of that from me too, because I wanted more skills, but I wanted more combat hittiness. And yeah, and that was a problem. That's a problem. Third Ed D20 in general.
Yeah. And that was the thing that I actually got a sort of a kick. Both frustrated me and amused me about Will's reaction to my character decisions on how I was building Nalem. Yeah. How Will's like, but you could be much more effective in combat, but I don't really want to be.
Oh, I've got all the skills covered, man.
And also the fact that it's like, yeah, but I also want to have this still feel like Star Wars to me. And if I'm running around in
Powered armor with a friggin' like rotary autocannon.
This does not feel like Star Wars to me.
Besides, me and Will had that covered.
Will didn't have any rotary autocannons. He had lightsabers and armor because my head.
Because he was some weird Jedi offshoot. Leland's combat droid had the rotary autocannon.
Yeah, I just. Oy. It was interesting. But again, that was I had no problems with any of the characters. It was just the system that got me in that one. But I was happily kept playing it just because I enjoyed the campaign that much. But we sort of
it was a fun campaign.
Well, Chris burned out.
Sure, why we stopped. I think Chris just got burned out.
Yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting. Those are the archetypes I tend to find myself playing. I have a question for you now.
Okay.
And this is, what archetypes do you see me running the most often? Villainous archetypes do you see me running the most often? Here's the question. That's the one interested to hear you.
You almost always do the "it's for your own good" villain. You don't understand, you'll thank me later kind of guy. You hardly ever do the ravening psychopath or the sociopath. There's a lot of chess mastering stuff, obviously, because Doctor Doom is awesome.
Yep.
And there's a lot of it's for your own good because Doctor Doom is awesome.
Yeah, there are. I mean, I've had a few villains who were more. I've had a few chess master villains who were less like that and more like the Master.
Yes. There is a fair amount of I've seen a couple times you do the well, if I did it the other way, then I wouldn't prove my superiority.
Yeah, I'm fond of that one.
Yeah, there's a fair amount of arrogance in all your villains.
Yeah, I admit that. Well, part of the reason
Azrael is very much the if I did it the other way, I wouldn't prove my superiority.
Yep, and in all honesty, part of that is over the years I found that villainous attitude is one of the best ways to motivate even characters who aren't that heroic into doing something about them.
Yes, because it's a really good way to rub people the wrong way.
Yep, yes it is. But yeah,
there've been a couple. I will admit, there've been a couple times with not in your games, but earlier in my gaming career, where someone has done the "it's for your own good," and I've done the "well, you know what, you're right, I'm joining you."
Yeah, I've never said it. I don't think I've pulled that. I love setting up situations where I try to tempt the players into joining the villains.
Yes.
And I've come remarkably close a few times.
Yes.
In the Feng Shui game, I came very, very, very close with with the Viking. I'm like, oh god. When I set this adventure up, I was like, oh god, I'd forgotten that Nick's character really has no heroic motivations at all. Oh god.
Oops. Well, neither did mine, really. It was just sort of, you're possessing people with demons. I'm doing that right now. It's not good, dude.
Yeah, So yeah, I like that. Yeah, it was just it's just
the arrogant bastard. All of your villains are arrogant bastards.
Not all of my villains. All my main villains are that.
Yes.
And not all of them, but most of them. Most of the time, when I have I think that I do have other villains that aren't that, but they're almost never the main villain.
The Skirks are very much it's for your own good.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Mastermind's game.
Absolutely.
However, Azrael was an arrogant prick.
Yep.
Who was proving his superiority, and was just plain evil because he was a demon. Yep. And Russian word I can't pronounce.
The Phantom.
It was totally a chess master.
Yes, he was.
So yeah, those are your three favorite guys right there, just from Star City, which...
Well, I find find that for main antagonists, those tend to work better. It's not just the it's not just that I prefer them. It's that I found over the years that for an ongoing antagonist, you need something like that in order to make them feel like they'll stick around for a while.
Right.
Because the guy who's just in it to destroy everything, who's the pure psychopath type, isn't really a good recurring villain. He's a good recurring personal enemy. But as a major driver of plot, it doesn't work as well in my experience.
I've seen him done well when you add some an additional motivation, like he's trying to bring back the old ones, or it's all part of some adding a supernatural element to him goes a long way.
Okay, I can see that, and that would be, yeah, I can definitely see that. Just because I don't tend to run a lot of. When I have the most time when I have supernatural elements, I mean, it's either a fantasy game, and in which case, I again fall back into the main villain having some sort of having an actual ongoing plot other than destroying the world. Most because I tend to find that a little bit more interesting, but
like I said, I've seen that done well, and adding the supernatural element doesn't even. He has to believe in the supernatural element. It doesn't have to actually be real.
Right. Oh, absolutely. But yeah, the big thing is that I think, again, part of it is that, as we talked about once in an earlier episode, I'm not that good at playing certain types of villains.
This is true.
I mean, I bust them out from time to time just so I can keep a hand in and try to improve them. But I'm much better at playing the three we were talking about than I am at playing others.
And you do them pretty damn well, honestly.
I like to think I do.
Chris is a game master, is a big fan of it's for your own good.
Yeah. I could definitely see that. But yeah, and there's some archetypes I have to improve on just for types of games that I want to run at some point. Actually, the unfortunate thing, you weren't in the Amber game that I ran.
No.
Because the main antagonist for most of that was it was not it's for your own good. It's for me and my people's own good that I'm basically going to wipe out reality and rebuild it.
Right. Well, that sort of falls into that. It's
to a degree.
Similar motivation. The guy's heart is in the right place's neighborhood.
Well,
for lack of a better term,
the basic point is the character in question wanted to basically destroy the pattern to return everything back to chaos because that's the way it's supposed to be.
Right. The guy who thinks he's doing good.
Well, those are almost always the best villains.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
Particularly if they're charismatic enough to make you go, maybe I should be helping him out.
No, she really wasn't. She was kind of nuts.
Okay.
She kind of had her brain. She got a major influx of power that drove her mad.
Gotcha.
But yeah, and dear Lord, the players hated her. She ended up very, very, very dead.
Well, that's good.
Very, very dead. It got kind of gruesome at the point where some of their plans, they ended up deciding not to do that. If I remember correctly, it involved her body ending up. Oh no! It involved, if I remember correctly, the final plan they were going to go with was basically ending up draining her blood and putting it into one of those mister things so they could spray the blood onto a fake pattern to destroy it.
Huh. Yeah, that would work.
On the side, the side effect of it is she being very, very dead at that point.
Yes.
But yeah,
well, you kind of need blood.
Yeah, for that, that's an in-universe specific thing. So I don't want to go into the full details in that right now. But yeah, the players really hated her. Plus, they were Amberites themselves, so they were all
no, the pattern's important.
Yeah.
Which pretty much anyone, even most Chaosians, go, yeah, okay, it's kind of important.
Yep. Yeah. That was ugly. But yeah, so I have to ask you, Eric, when you run games, are there any particular archetypes you tend to favor?
I'm a big fan of the Dark Knight.
Okay. Yep.
The uh, Darth Vader, basically. He's a big, irredeemably evil character who honestly believes what he's doing is right, but isn't is right for him and his.
Right.
Everything else is unimportant and can burn for all he cares. But him and his, that's what needs to be done.
Right.
Although, one of my more successful villains was more chasing power for its own sake.
Interesting.
Which was the Necromancer, Mr. Rice, from my
Iron Kingdoms.
Iron Kingdoms game. Thank you.
Cool. Cool. Yeah. Are there my next question for you, Erica? Are there any archetypes you haven't played that you really haven't played much or haven't played that you want to try out at some point?
I would love at some point do a guy who really, really, really is trying to be a bad guy. Like he is. I am evil. I am the evilest guy ever. But deep down, he's a really good guy. That's a really fun idea. I have no idea how well it'll work, but I haven't been in a group where I could get away with it yet.
Right. Interesting.
Just turning the whole like, I have done the good guy who deep down inside is actually an evil bastard but doesn't know it. I've done that a couple times, which has worked to varying degrees of success. And I've always kind of wanted to turn that on its head.
Interesting. Okay. I don't know. As I said, I kind of want to play sort of a more chess mastery scholarly type than because most of my chess masters tend to be less scholarly and more sort of more
street smarts.
Yeah, more not just street smarts, but there's that, and it's also they're more focused on the psychology side of things, and less on the purely intellectual and tactical side of things.
Fair enough.
And I want to do that at some point. I've built characters to do that, and I play them a little bit, but I've not actually gotten to explore it as far as I'd like.
I could see that.
The other one I do want to I want to play. I've tried. I've never gotten to play the character for more than like a session or two, but I really want to play the again. It's another intelligence character. The character is really smart. The guy is really smart, knows it, and is a good guy. It is a good guy, but is also colossally arrogant and is unafraid to show that he is complete and is unapologetic in the way in showing how much smarter he is than everybody else.
You want to play Adric?
No, not exactly Adric. No. No, it's sort of the chess master who can't help but show off. Right.
Okay, I could see that.
And he's not trying to be insulting when he points out how much smarter he is than his teammates. He's really not trying to be insulting. He just thinks he's just pointing out the truth.
I'm just pointing out the obvious, right?
Well, duh. I mean, it's not your fault that you're not as smart as I am.
Just bad genes, my friend. Bad genes. Not your fault.
Yeah, to a degree, D-Man. That D-Man in the chat mentioned the magnificent bastard. To a degree, except a good guy.
Yeah.
The thing is, he actually is a good guy. He just has no sense of diplomacy whatsoever. It's like,
okay. That could be fun. I
yeah,
could see that.
It's hard. It's not something. I tend to play characters who are capable of being diplomatic, and I've not actually played a character who isn't. But we'll want to talk anyways.
I could see you ending up dead in the Monday game.
I would not play it in that game.
I don't care how useful he is. I'm putting his head on a pike. I'd also like to give a try at a Magnificent Bastard at some point. The problem is I'm just not... My subtlety always ends up devolving to hit it till it stops moving.
Right.
I'd love to try playing basically someone like, say, Tyrion from Song of Ice and Fire.
Right.
By not sure how well I could pull it off.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm not sure how well I can pull it off either. I want to try it,
Yeah.
though.
That's something it's something I'd like to try at some point, but I'm fairly certain it'll devolve into just fucking hit him.
Zan in the chat asked about my sword mage. He's referred to Charon, the sword mage I was playing in one of Lord Cat's games. And the difference here is that Charon actually was... The big difference is that, unlike the character I'm talking about, Charon was actually fairly charismatic and was a nice person. And she really, honestly, when she actually did insult someone, she actually felt bad about it and apologized. This guy wouldn't think that wouldn't occur to him at all. It's like, why are you offended by this? I mean, think Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
Sherlock Holmes is the prime example. This is exactly the character I'm thinking of. Just hit me. It's like, it's Sherlock Holmes. Holmes doesn't give a toss about whether he offends people when he's talking at all. He's like, yeah, whatever.
It's unimportant.
That's not important. That's not important. What's important, we actually get this, achieve our actual goals. I don't care if you're. I'm sorry if you're emotionally hurt. That's unfortunate. I don't really care though. We have more important things to do.
The opposite of that might be fun to play also. The bungling idiot who thinks he's doing everything right, but turns out people are covering for him behind his back. Inspector Gadget.
Mm-hmm.
That could be fun to play also.
That's something I'm not sure I could actually pull off without getting irritated with the character.
I think I could pull it off for a while, better than I could the Magnificent Bastard. Just because the comedy of it would amuse me.
Right. I could see that. As I said, I don't think I could pull it off. As I said, I'd get frustrated with the character. I would get frustrated with the character. I mean, I played characters that aren't that smart before, but I always find it frustrating in some situations.
There's something I will say. There is something liberating about playing someone dumb as a stump. I don't do it often, but when I do, it's very liberating. The fourth head game you did for the Monday crew, Tarek was dumb as a stump, and he was very liberating.
Yeah, and
my half-orc barbarian was, as is typical of barbarians, dumb as a stump.
Yeah, but he was at least charismatic.
Yeah, everyone kind of liked him.
Yeah, he was,
even though he's a giant prick, in every sense of the word.
Ba-dum-bum. But yeah,
he ended up fighting naked many times.
Well, if you got ambushed at night, it happens. Unfortunately, you got ambushed at night not during Tarek's watch. Yeah,
not during Tarek's watch. Why bother with the guilt? There's fighting to be done.
Yep. Interesting enough, I do want to. At some point, I want to see if I can put together play a smart barbarian, because I kind of want to try that at some point.
No, playing someone more akin to Conan would be really fun.
Yeah, I've had ideas for doing fourth edition mechanic moment here, but like a hybrid barbarian warlord, have me a tactical warlord, effectively would be interesting. I'm just not sure how well it would work, but I kind of want to try it though.
Again, fourth ed, just a plain old-fashioned Thane-born barbarian would work also.
Yeah, well, yes, but yeah, again, the problem is that again, your dump stat has to go somewhere, and int is not very useful for you.
That's true.
Which is unfortunate.
It sure as hell's in charisma in this case.
No. All right. So, anything else you want to sort of talk about on terms of archetypes before we move on?
Oh, I could go on forever about archetypes.
Is there anything in particular you want to touch on before we move on to
not
questions?
Not particularly off the top of my head. Not without delving into specific intellectual properties and dissecting characters.
Yeah. Okay. I think we can move on to questions then, because we do have a few this week.
Excellent. All
right. Let us start with a question from King Waza. He says, "Hey guys, King Waza here. I've been working on a feng shui setting since first hearing about it. Thanks to Saturday Kung Fu Theater, I've been planning to set this up more seriously. The setting's working as basically a 90s action television series ripping off 80s action movies. So I want to see how well you can mix contemporary and 2056 settings crunch-wise. Because at least in the main city, they would be mixed, so the PCs have different settings. Don't get too much difference between them, upsetting the balance between the players." So he's sort of asking, from a how well mixing those two crunch-wise would be, from a mechanical standpoint, basically. It'd be fine.
I don't. Yeah, I don't see any problems with it. I mean,
Um,
Feng Shui is beautiful in that it's a really mechanically fucking with it tends to make it work.
yeah,
Doing stuff like that tends to work out
yeah. Honestly,
without even trying.
yeah, they did a very good job at balancing the future tech with the contemporary tech and such. It really wouldn't be a problem in terms of balance. It should work out fine. Um,
Darkvolt uses the phrase flexible, which is the one I was looking for, but ended up with more profanity.
because that's you.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it would work out fine. So I think Waza, you just honestly with feng shui, really just if you've got a concept for that sort of thing, take it, run with it. It'll probably work out in the end.
Yeah.
Uh,
But deal with problems as they arise because Feng Shui is good at that also.
Yep. All right. The next question is from Peter Magnuson. He says, "Hey guys, I've been thinking about doing a campaign where every player is a traitor. Ergo, everybody has been hired by some evil organization / person to kill everyone else. And the players, I hope, will not know about the fact that the others are in fact trying to kill them. Only they themselves are trying to kill everyone else. The reason I've been thinking about doing this is to do something that the players I have is just a bit more on the humor side of things, while the campaign I'm running is much more serious. So the players are more sort of into the humor side of stuff, and the campaign is currently more serious. And I feel they're starting to feel that I'm just following a standard formula, and that I'm not strict enough with them. I know my players really well, and I think that I convinced them into doing it as I'm good with words. This is the reason I'm GM, especially since at least two of my players like to play homicidal maniacs. Do you think I should try this? Most way to shake things up a little, way things will make it a little more funny. My answer to that is, if you know the players and think this will, and there won't be hard feelings, go for it. It'll be fucking hilarious.
Yes, that sounds like a lot of fun. I don't expect it will last too many sessions before everyone's dead, but
But honestly, I mean, that's sort of almost the crux of playing Paranoia to a certain degree.
yes, it is Paranoia.
Except more secretive, which is even funnier.
Yes.
And if you really can arrange it so the players don't know, oh my god, it'll be brilliant.
One of the things about what I love about Paranoia is that it devolves into who's got the most creative way of killing other PCs.
Right.
Which is just fun.
But yeah, as I said,
unfortunately, certain people you can't play it with because hurt feelings.
yeah, as I said, as long as you're sure that it won't lead to actual problems in the group, go for it.
Yeah.
And just kick back and have fun with it. It'll be a blast.
It sounds hilarious. It sounds like good fun.
But yeah, Eric's right. Don't expect this campaign to last very long. It very likely will end up in most of the characters dead fairly quickly. All right. The next question we have is from the Bob, and he says, "What do you do when the party is missing the blank? When missing the blank, specifically key roll. Generally, it's the healer, but it could be other things. Is a DMPC acceptable for a role nobody wants, or does one of the players have to man up to the position? Is there any way that's not obvious? That's not an obvious way around this." Okay.
Speaking specifically about Dungeons and Dragons and similar games, my friend Matt ran the Witchfire trilogy for Iron Kingdoms. I keep on coming back to Iron Kingdoms today. And no one ended up playing a priest.
Oh dear.
So, basically what Matt did was he tweaked things a little bit to make healing potions plentiful and cheap.
Yep. Yeah, honestly, there are ways around that. You're missing the healer. You definitely could just make sure that there are plenty of healing items that are available. It's more of a problem in 4th ed than it is in 3rd, where in 3rd you just need enough healing items to get around that, and then you can cover the other stuff the clerics do between the melee types and other spellcasters.
Other spellcasters, yeah.
And in 4th ed, honestly,
you're much better with 4th ed than I am. So
yeah, you can if you make sure the players have easy access to healing potions, you can get away with a leaderless party without a leader / the healer type, the quote healer. But the thing is, the healer in 4th ed brings the healer types in 4th ed bring a lot more to the table than healing. and it's not something that tends to be brought by the other sort of roles. Can you get away with? Can you make that work without that? Yeah. As to whether whether using an NPC to fill the role, as long as you make sure the character doesn't step on the other player's toes in other situations.
Yes, this is important. An NPC who's of the same level power level as the players is all well and good. Particularly, it's filling a vital role no one wants to play. Just make sure the guy fades in the background when necessary.
Yep.
Don't. It's about the players. Don't have your NPC like friggin' charging forward and saving the day all the time. This is a mistake I've made a couple times.
Yeah. Honestly, if you're doing that for like, especially for like a healer / leader type, fourth ed leader, not like the guy leading the party, but I would try to find a way for it to be a more sort of the type that doesn't have to do things quite as actively and doesn't require as much dice rolling.
As far as other roles that might be missing, like say no one's playing a rogue, they can just juggernaut their way through it. If no one's playing a tank, they can sneak their way through it.
Yeah, honestly,
it's the healing one that's really hard to ignore.
In a fantasy game, that's definitively true. Honestly, in general, for most of the other stuff that you're talking about, as long as the game master keeps that in mind and doesn't create adventure, like for instance, if the party doesn't have someone who has thievery, and you're running a campaign, try to avoid having a lot of situations where them not having the thievery skill will screw them. Think of other ways for them to be able to handle that, because otherwise,
and give them the option to just beat the door down, which has happened a few times in games I've played in.
Yeah, sure, and there are a bunch of different other ways. Try to think of other stuff. I mean, and honestly, I will say this, in fourth ed specifically, it's honestly, the important thing is that like missing a thief in fourth ed is much less a problem than almost any other game, since honestly you could just have one of the players take skill training thievery and you're fine.
Yeah.
If it's just the skill you're missing, because almost everything else the thief brings to the table is.
Same with not having a tech guy, a dedicated tech guy in a sci-fi game.
Right.
Just spread the tech skills around the other players.
Right.
Making sure someone's got cybernetics and someone's got security systems and someone's got net hacking.
Right. But honestly, even there, I mean, again, just as the game master, just be sure not to cram the stuff that their party is weak to down their throats constantly. I mean, occasionally...
And it's something to hit them with every once in a while, just to remind them, you guys should probably fix this at some point. That's fine, but don't make it a constant obstacle.
Right. That's the thing. It's just so you know... yeah, exactly. It's that I would say that. But again, if you can also handle it with a party NPC. I've done it a few times, but don't make sure that they are a background character.
Yeah.
That's
like playing a sci-fi game without a tech guy, and you need to get through the security door. Let's just say I've resorted to breaching charges lots of times.
Yeah. The other option that you could go with is not so much a party NPC, but like if they like, especially in a non sort of fantasy role playing type thing. The great sort of thing, like, you know, if you're doing sort of a more sort of a sci-fi type game, and the players know that they're going to need a technician for something, just give them the opportunity to hire someone to come along and fill that role for that. And
yeah,
they basically can hire a non-combat technician and that'll add a little extra sort of, you know, spice things. They got this guy, they got to make sure it doesn't get ganked before they can get him to the point where they need him to
Tony Wark.
Yeah, the penguin engineer in the Supers game. Well, that wasn't why that I wasn't. I hadn't really planned on you guys actually taking him in as a team member of the team.
He's totally our non-combat tech guy. Are you kidding?
I know. I wasn't actually planning on that. But it worked out. I was okay with it. It's like, yeah, fine. I mean, if you want to do that, that's cool. He's not a bad guy.
and everybody likes Tony. Mark. Remind me next time you hand out XP that I need to pick up Language Penguin.
Nope, you can't have it.
Why not? It's awesome.
Nope. Tony's funnier when no one actually understands him.
Okay, fair enough.
All right. I think that wraps up the questions this week. And is there anything else you want to talk with on the anything else on that topic there?
Well.
Okay.
If someone wants to like throw a particular intellectual property at me to dissect, then I can do that.
But yeah, I think that's enough for the show this week. If you want to hang around, people sort of throw IPs at you in the chat afterwards.
I've got shit I got to do.
That's too bad.
Around.
All right, well, we should probably wrap things up then if you got to get going. So I think that's it for this week, guys. Thanks everyone for watching. The people watching us live, we appreciate that. If you're listening to the recording, we love that. If you got questions for us, we love getting questions. Please send them to us. If you got feedback on the show, criticisms, suggestions, way we can make things better, possible future show topics or questions you'd like answered at the end of the show. We love getting all of that stuff.
We absolutely love that stuff. Throw your criticisms at us. Throw your praise at us. We love all of that stuff.
Yep.
We like to know what we're doing right. We even more like to know what we're doing wrong.
Exactly. So you can send that to us. Our email address. You can send to our email address is surlygrognards@yahoo.com. surlygrognards@yahoo.com. You can also hit us up on the forums, mechajam.forumer.com. The middle part of that is FORUMER. So mechajam.forumer.com, and there's a section for Surly Grognards there. You can find me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @mechajam. You can also find me on both Facebook and Google+. I'm Peter Bowman in both places. And you can find Eric's work on the webcomic Boston Arcanum, which you can find at bostonarcanum.com. Anything new in the comic this week, Eric? Or
it's still more or less in a hiatus. Hopefully we'll have some stuff up soon-ish. But yeah, I'm calling it on hiatus until notice otherwise.
All right, so the comic's on hiatus, guys. But if you haven't read it yet, go check it out. It's good stuff. So other than that, I think we'll be back next week. We have a couple of different show topics we're mulling over to talk about next week. So we actually have stuff ahead of time for once. Actually, we've had that for the past few weeks. It's kind of awesome.
Yes, it's great because it's sort of like the holy crap, we've got to do the show tonight. Let's look up those suggestions and see what we want to do.
Right. At any rate, guys, thanks for watching. We'll be back next week. Until then, keep on gaming, guys. Good night, everybody.
Good night, guys.